Okay, so this is the Forbidden Unlimited list predictions. I want to try and add logistics into it. I don't think all of these are going to happen. There are some cards on here that will not be touched. Um, yeah, we'll kind of talk through them in a minute. There is some interesting topics of conversation. I like the idea of Mirage Nightmare. I just think it's too much. Maybe I think there's a lot of cards that could come back if the erratas from the OCG come through. But I'm pretty sure I don't recall a time where we've ever had a card unlocked from the Forbidden Limited list without the errata in rotation, or like with the potential of the errata to be in rotation. And what I mean by that is the next way for us to get the erratas of cards like Norden, because I'm pretty sure they're not legal until the errata comes out. I'm pretty sure that's what we've had before, right? So if they were to bring stuff back, they would say this card is still banned until you get this card. And I'm pretty sure when we've done that, or when that's happened in the past, we've never been that far away from it. So what I mean by that is cards like Norton and... Has Halley Firebax had an errata, or am I just dreaming that it should have had an errata to make it playable? So... Okay, let's have a look at this. I'm gonna jump straight into it. Let's talk about Cool Tune, right? Because Cool Tune is the one that a lot of people are talking about. So at this moment in time, I've got Cool Tune Synchro here. I've got Q, and I've got Rotary. Right? Now, from my perspective, Rotary should not be the way that it is. If Rotary was just search a spell or return a card from the grave, 100%. Keep it, fine, not an issue. The fact that it lets you look at your opponent's hand is pretty bad. Now, Cool Tune definitely needed that level 1 monster. I don't disagree with that whatsoever. So, I feel Konami are either going to be brutal and they just out and out ban Rotary, right? Because the access to Rotary is actually very easy. You've got KTS to get to it, you've got Q, you've got Mix, you've got Clip. Not Clip, sorry. Q, Mix, and Rico, right? So you've got so many ways to get to it. I feel that they either go ban Rotary, Q stays at 3, Cool Tune Synchro stays at 3, right? That's one route I think they could go. Another route is that they could do what they did with Canines and what they did with Dracotals, where they actually go limit, but they hit something else as well. So they probably go semi-limit KTS, maybe semi-limit Q, or maybe they limit Q. Something like this. They could be more balanced with it all and do that. Cool Tune is still very much playable like this. Like, I feel that the deck to maintain a level of competitiveness needs that Rotary as that level 1. It needs that level 1 option, right? But if they were to just do this, I would be very surprised. I feel they're either just going to do this or they're going to do something like this. That would be my prediction. It's one or the other. So that's what I would say. They could very well print a new level 1 Cool Tune, but remember that's going to rely on the OCG. Now, speaking of the OCG, let me just have a quick look. So what is the OCG Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list right now? Because they've got the Cool Tunes are Cool Tune Rotary is currently limited, right? But they also have Cool Tune Synchro is semi-limited. And that's it. They've got Synchro Overtake limited. I mean, Synchro Overtake could get banned, to be fair. Maybe I could add Synchro Overtake. Maybe we follow the OCG. Maybe this is what happens. Like, that's very possible, right? I think this could be quite logical. This would make sense to me. Anyway, right, we spent a bit of time on Cool Tunes. Let's move on to the next one. So I'm going to put Q down here. Maybe Q doesn't get touched. Maybe something like this. This is kind of what happens. Miscellaneousaurus. Miscellaneousaurus. I think it's Cope. But I would love Miscellaneous to start working its way back down the list. I really would. I would love it to be like this. But I think it's Cope. Any list that it could possibly change. But then it will come one day where Konami go, okay, cool, we're going to semi-limit it. And then everyone that is a Dino fan is going to rejoice. They're going to be like, yes, the card's coming back. Let's see where we go. But I think it's cope. Drones. I mean, drones can only be banned, right? That's the only possible option. And the reason I say drones could be banned is if drones gets banned, the splashability of Engage as an engine goes. It doesn't exist anymore, right? But I mean, I don't think they have an eye on it until Ryan Yu won with it. And even when Ryan Yu won with it, he won against 7 other Cool Tune decks. And, of course, Ryan Yu is Ryan Yu. He's just on a level of his own. So, maybe nothing happens to this. Maybe that stays there. Maybe Drones doesn't get hit. Maybe they semi-limit Engage. That's possible. They did Branded Fusion comes back to 1, and then they put it back down to 1. So maybe that's possible. Let's have a look at Mitsurugi. I honestly, I personally don't think anything's going to happen to Mitsurugi, but these cards could all very easily, like, again, Habakuri would have to be banned, and then you'd be looking at something like this, right? Or something like this. Again, it wouldn't be all the same. You would either go like ban Habakuri, these two stay as they are, or you go, you keep Habakuri at 1, but we're going to let it join by this one. Personally, I don't think any of that gets changed. I just don't think it happens. I don't think Mitsurugi are that good. They've done the right thing with Mitsurugi, and they've got rid of all the splashable variants. Like, yes, you can still play Town Crew Mitsurugi. You can still technically play Ritual Light and Darkness Mitsurugi, which I don't mind. I think that's kind of fine. It's not dominating the way that it did with Raizu at max power and everything else in between. So I don't think anything actually changes on it. Unless anyone else has any other options or opinions on that one, I don't think that changes. Meow Mew is cope. I would love this to come back to 1. I don't think Prank Kids do enough now these days anyway. But I would really love this to come back to 1. But again, I think it's cope. I really do. I just can't see Konami doing it. It's one of them ones that I think is going to get lost in the ether. It's just going to be on the list that never changes and never moves, which is a shame. But I think that's, if I'm again thinking logically, thinking effectively, I don't think it comes back. I want it to. I don't think it does. Electromite. Everyone wants Electromite to come back, right? Everyone wants it to come back, which is fine. Again, a lot of people think decks aren't going to get touched because of products that have been released, right? Noroi didn't last that long, and that got fully banned. They can weaken decks that have just come out. There's no doubt about that. They could, if they really wanted to, they could. If the deck was that big of a problem, they would put prayers. They could hit pre-preparation. They could hit a card that isn't in the deck, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. I agree with you. I don't think they're going to touch it. But to use the justification of they've just printed X, Y, or Z, is long out the window. Like, there are so many times where Konami have hit cards, even though a deck's just got an ultimate rare print. Like, I will still, when we get to Fallen Virtuous, I'll talk about how I think Fallen Virtuous could get hit, even though they've just given it an ultimate rare printing. It's the exact same thing with Ash Blossom. I think Ash Blossom could possibly be hit, even though it's just been given ultimate rare printing. That stuff these days does not protect it. The only thing that might protect cards, if you are trying to think in the future, is maybe the Winners Pack. Because if the Winners Pack is like a full series, like for the whole entire season, if they were to ban something like Call by the Grave, you would feel so done by if you pull from your Winners Pack of Call by the Grave. I don't think an intro product is different to a set. I think if Konami want to hit something, they can hit something. If a deck is that big of an issue, they can hit something. And also remember that the legendary deck, modern decks now are still relatively old. They're like a good couple of months old, right? And they can still hit the deck. It doesn't, and you just don't kill the deck. Again, I agree. I don't think Mitsurugi are going to get hit. I don't think they've done enough to get hit. I think this is actually a really good deck for a lot of people to get into, which is why I've not put them to the list, but it's something of topic to discuss, that there is the very, very thin possibility that maybe something happens. I personally don't think they will do. But it wouldn't make the deck illegal. You don't... Again, remember, the product's already been out. So when did the modern decks come out? The legendary modern decks I'm pretty sure they're like 3 or 4 months old, right? They were March. So the middle of March. So we got middle of April, middle of May, middle of June, middle of July. They're already 4 months old. And then they will, of course, by the time this list comes into play, could possibly be 5 months old. So if they were to, again, they wouldn't ban anything. They would just limit something. So you get, I think you only get like 2 prayers in the box, right? They could very easily just put prayers to 2. Very easy. They might not ban Habakuri, but eventually as time goes on, I agree. Again, I'm reiterating the point. I agree. I don't think they will hit anything, but to use a justification of, yes, I agree they won't make a deck illegal, but I think there are ways that they will find, if they felt the deck was that big of an issue, you can still hit cards. I just think that that's kind of how it is. When do I think the list drops? I think the list has to drop a decent chunk before Worlds if that list is put into effect for Worlds. But I honestly think that the list will drop after Worlds. Keep in mind that after Worlds, the next product we have is the Magnificent Monsters. So we have Worlds, then we have Magnificent Monsters, and then that's it. There's a bit of an open gap. So it either comes at the start of August, and then it's applied for Worlds, and then everyone works by the new Worlds list, which, again, wouldn't be that big of an issue if they follow most of the OCG list. So, for example, if they were to limit Rotary and semi-limit Cool Tune Synchro, that doesn't actually affect your Worlds planning at all, because that's what you would usually be playing by because of the OCG list anyway. Anyway, circling back to Electromite. I think Electromite hasn't been power crept, but it's been built in different ways. Like, they've tried to split up the Electromite ability so that it doesn't need to come back. And if it comes back, it kind of makes newer cards null and void. So, again, as much as I would like, this could come back and it would be absolutely fine because it would be good for the Odd Eyes deck. I don't think it comes back, honestly, if I'm being totally honest. Where are we looking? I mean, the game right now is relentlessly healthy. Just some issues here and there, but there's always benefit. Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think the game is that bad. I think there's quite a nice range. There are some cards that I want to address, which we'll get to a little bit later on. Yes, I was just checking that Spell Cancel was on there. Just grab the entire Azamina package. We'll be fuming if Witch gets hit. I don't think Witch would get hit. You could probably argue Wanted, maybe. We'll talk about that in a minute. Baguska, I don't think, again, Baguska only gets banned. There is no point in limiting a card like Baguska. I don't think it does get hit. Again, it's just a card to discuss. I feel that it could very well be hit. I wouldn't be overly shocked if they did, but I don't think I don't think it does. Because the only deck that really abuses it is Loonlights, and I don't think they abuse it enough to make it worthwhile. And I feel that when we've got cards like Fallen the Virtuous, when we've got cards like Link Monsters, SP Little Knight, and everything else in between it, then that should be absolutely fine. What do I think about Magician's Magician Souls and Pharaohic Advent? You'll have to be a bit more specific. I assume you send the Pharaohic Advent, right? And then there is a loop to Pharaohic Advent. What I think, if anything, it's the cards that Pharaohic Advent can get to that will get hit. Tribute one monster special in his card from hand. Tribute a Fairy, Fiend, or Reptile. So where does Souls come in? I know Souls sends it from deck to grave, and then I'm assuming you make what? You make the Quartet in Bloom and bring it back. Possibly. Anyway. Heavy Storm. Could I see Heavy Storm coming back? I probably could, to be honest. I'm just trying to think, like... I mean, the argument that people always gave me comparing it to Harpy's Feather Duster was like, sometimes there are spells and traps that you want to destroy. I don't know if there are spells and traps that we want to be destroyed. I suppose if you get Heavy Storm, it is basically like a kind of a Lightning Storm going second, really, isn't it? I don't think it happens, but then Konami do like to bring back, like, every now and then they'll bring back one card that is an old card that just needs to come off the list, and they're like, we'll test the waters. So I always go back to Satch still. I always go for Change of Heart and stuff like that. if we ban Magician's Souls, we can have Master Plan 3. Nah, Magician's Souls never getting banned. Never, 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 never. I hope, anyway. I think Heavy Storm could come back. I wouldn't have an issue with it. Liger Dancer's not getting banned. Limit, again, it's a topic of conversation. It's not going to happen. There is no way this gets limited. If you were to do anything with this, it goes to this. Loonlights is a good rogue deck. It's a very good introductory deck. It's just something that I wanted to bring up because I know previously a lot of people have been talking about this card being limited, and 1 Liger is fair, 2 Ligers is not fair, but you know, I don't think Liger gets touched. I honestly do. My Sen daughter is obsessed with it. I've only done one. I haven't had a chance to do it again. I'll tell you what, I don't even have my camera on me. I've got one dog who is currently lying on the floor. Absolutely Sparko. You right there, darling. And then the other one I'm hoping is sleeping in the other room. Anyway. Let's... I mean, someone's just mentioned Shavara. Let's talk about Shavara. Shavara has to come back, right? Like, there is no reason to keep Shavara at 2. You've got Unchained cards coming. Yes, the Unchained cards probably aren't going to be coming until next year. And shout out to Ari. I had a very good conversation with Ari today about that. So, the Witchcrafters, the Toons, and the question mark Unchained, Witchcrafters, and Toon cards were in like a their own special set in the OCG. So yeah, maybe the Nexus come back to 3, but I have no issues. I think this card could come back to 3. While we're at it, I also think Delicious Memory and Sleeping Memory can come back. I honestly think that a lot of... I'm just going to jump to the list now here. I think a lot of the semi-limited cards that have gone from... like, have come from the ban limit or whatever can come back to 3. So the Sword Riser always going the other way, and it probably gets stuck in limbo here. Droll will only go less. There's no way Droll comes back to 3. Arfulion, maybe they might feel generous and give us back Arfulion to 3. I don't think that makes that big of a difference. I don't think Malice in Underground moves. But I think these two definitely move. Runic Fountain probably stays where it is. So, yeah, I think they could clear out that semi-limited section quite a bit, to be honest. And I think that's where we get these cards coming back. I'll come back to these in a minute because I think these are quite an important card of the format. And I'm also going to come back to those in a minute. Dimension Shifter, I would love to... like, it can only be banned. There's no way this comes back anymore. I just feel that it's such a sacky card. It's like, if my opponent sees it, like, I don't feel that they've outplayed me or anything. I'm just like, bro, okay, cool, you got lucky. I don't think it happens, but I think it probably could do. But I think the justification of Dimension Shifter is, well, you have to see it. What are the chances of you constantly seeing it? So... Lacrima, I think it can come back to 3. It makes no difference. Again, if you want to clear the list off, you can bring it back to 3. It's fine. Really? Really? I'm not going to lie. I thought it was a car outside revving its engine, but it's not. It was the younger dog growling at the older dog. And all the older dog wants to do is sleep, and all the younger dog wants to do is play. So relax. I'm going to finish this video. Okay, thank you. I know. No. No. Alright, okay, let me finish. Mally to 1. Yeah, they love to yo-yo Mally around. Eclipse Wyvern, I think Eclipse Wyvern can come back. Do I think it will happen? Probably not. But again, every now and then, I would love to see a banned card be freed up. And keep in mind as well, what we're not privy to as a player base is we're not privy to what cards are coming out in the future like that far ahead. So do I think a card like Ultimate Offering could come back, or what strategy would be able to abuse it? Good point. It probably could. Again, remember, right, there are hundreds of thousands of cards in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And no one knows every single one of them and the effect it's going to have going forward. There will be times where bringing cards off of the list is a trial and error basis. Again, take it back to Snatch Steal back in the early 2010s or 2012. The card comes back. It was 2 degenerate. It got put straight back on the list. Branded Fusion comes back to 2, lasts a little bit, then gets put back on the list. So there will be trial and error moments. There'll be moments where it's like, okay, not enough, it has to go back. And there are times where it's like, yeah, this was fine. And they start to unleash it and move on from there. Phantom View Belt, I have no issue unleashing Phantom View Belt. I think if anything, it becomes semi-limited. I don't think that's going to happen. I think, again, it's kind of one of these cards that gets stuck in limbo, where it gets put on the list because it had its moment in the sun at Worlds, and then it just gets forgotten about. And then it gets forgotten about, and then it just stays there. I would like to think that there is someone, when a Forbidden Limited list is being put together, that they look over the entire list. But again, if I jump across to the list here, right? This is the Forbidden section. Wow. And if you're like, oh, we could bring back Maxi, but what effect does it have on the current game and the game for the next X amount of months? So there's a lot to consider. And again, you look at the limited section, that's still a lot of cards. That's a lot of cards. So anyway. Shark. I think Shark can come back to 1. I want it to come back to 1. I think it's Cope. I don't think it is going to come back to 1. But I feel that it could come back. This was a casualty or this was collateral damage. I don't think it should have been here. I want to see this in Sharks. Sharks have lost all kind of casual playability and then either higher level of playability. But Blot Dragon and Norden, I don't think they're going to come back, but like I was mentioning earlier, these will only come back if the erratas are put into place. If the erratas are not put into place, and I'm pretty sure Blot Dragon has an errata, I could be making that up. Blot Dragon could come back with Adamantipator against support. That would actually be quite a good selling point. And I think that I think they were a bit more free that the Blot Dragon could come back. I think this is more logical than Norden right now. But if you were to tell me that Norden is reprinted in the Magnificent Monsters, I don't know why it would be, but if it was, then that's the place where this card gets its errata. This card can then come back to 1 and you're good to rock and roll. It did get reprinted in like Rarity Collection 3 or 4, I think. But yeah, Blot Dragon doesn't have an errata. I don't know why I thought it did, but either way. I don't think Blot Dragon is as bad. And again, someone might correct me and say, actually, it's still really, really bad right now. But I think it could be Mind Master. Which one's Mind Master? Yeah, but Mind Master isn't hit on our list, right? Mind Master was a new... Oh, wow, it's an old card. You pay 800 life points and tribute a Psychic type monster, except itself. There's a level 4 lower Psychic monster from your deck in face out tap position. And it's currently forbidden. I didn't realise that. Is that its errata? I'm talking about the other one. Interesting. And then maybe Mind Master comes back. Again, I think that there needs to be a time when an errata is provided to a card that it needs to come into like the next printable set. But again, I'm fully aware that the way that the production lines work is that cards are already put into production well in advance to an errata. And I guess they have to have communications with, yeah. I think a card like Nightmare Goblin would be fine to get back. I really don't think it would see play anyway. Let me remind myself of Nightmare Goblin. If this card is linked somewhere during your turn, you get to discard a card. If this card was co-linked when that effect was activated, you draw 1 card. Also, during your main phase's turn, you can normal summon 1 monster from the hand to a zone this card points to, in addition to normal summon a set. Maybe. Yeah, maybe that could come back. Neither player can target co-linked monsters you control card effects. It's not so bad. Maybe that could come back. Ah, right. Okay, thank you. My master wasn't once per turn. Fine. Then it probably could come back without a big issue, to be fair. Anyway, I'm dilly-dallying on this one. Let's try and pick this back up. Spell Canceller, I want it banned. I want it banned. I also want Anti-Spell Fragrance banned. I'll talk about talents in a minute. I don't think these cards are healthy for the game. Now, Spell Canceller is the same as Anti-Spell, but worse, because obviously once it hits the field, unless your opponent has an infinite impermanence, they can't negate the spell canceller. Yes, there'll be people that'll be like, yeah, you can just remove it from the graveyard and do this, do that, right? Whatever. The issue I have around anti-spell fragrance is if it's played in Ritual Light and Darkness or Light and Darkness Ritual, they can protect it from being destroyed. So there is no way that your opponent can out that anti-spell. There's no way they can do it. The big difference, I guess, is the anti-spell is going to affect technically both players, even though spell cancel is one way, or just got to try and remember what it is. Spell cards and their effects on the field cannot be activated. Negate all spell effects on the field. So Canceller is both players as well, but I don't know. I just want both of these banned. I just don't think they're healthy for the game. I really don't. I should not be watching a game of Yu-Gi-Oh where my opponent goes and searches out. Like even Judgment is. I mean, I don't mind Judgment. One Judgment is fine. I don't think it should be banned. But what I'm trying to say is, both of these scenarios, you see them coming, right? You see your opponent send Spell Canceller from deck to grave. You see your opponent search out the anti-spell fragrance. And then to know that you have no way to stop that card being flipped. Like we saw it at Euros where anti-spell fragrance was hard seen. They flipped it, they won the duel. The opponent just scooped. I've seen it where Spell Canceller gets summoned and people just scoop. Like, I don't want to see that. I want to see my opponent try and break the field. And I want to see if the opponent that set up their go first field, I want to see them win because they held the interactions at the right time, interacting with my opponent, and opponent didn't have enough, right? That's what I want to see. I don't want to see my opponent go draw phase, flip anti-spell, my opponent looks at the hand, no way to get through anti-spell, and scoop. I don't want that. Like, that's not fun Yu-Gi-Oh to watch for anyone. So, I want them banned. I think they should get banned. I don't think any reason for them not to get banned. I guess we'll soon find out. Ash Blossom. People are talking about Ash Blossom being semi-limited. I don't think Ash Blossom is anywhere near that bad of a card. I actually think Ash Blossom is quite weak this format. And this is the first format where I'm actually considering in certain decks where you don't care about Ash Blossom. Because Ash Blossom is currently being used to counter the Mole Charmies. That is basically its biggest use. Yes, there are some scenarios where if you Ash a card at the right time and your opponent's got the right bad hand, nothing progresses. That's fine. That I don't mind. That's kind of just, again, part and part of the game. That's just how it works. But I don't think it's anywhere near as good, this format. So I don't think Ash changes at all. I don't think Ash is an issue. I've never felt that Ash was an issue. Because I think Ash is a fair and balanced card. Because Ash will only trade off with one card. And I think you need a card like Ash Blossom to trade off with cards like Desires, Engages. I would much rather, not as an opponent, like I'd much rather see Droll against my opponent when they're trying to search a lot of cards than an Ash Blossom, because the amount of cards we have in this game that search. But I feel Ash is a fair, balanced card. I don't have any issues with Ash in the game at all, and I think it's actually needed for the game. So, me personally, Ash doesn't get hit. High Wave King Caesar, High Wave King Caesar only gets banned. That's the only thing. I don't think it needs to. I think right now the format is quite open. But, and there is a but to this, if the Fallen of the Virtuous was to get hit, and this becomes like it was in the past, you could very easily get interacted to death on a Fiendsmith deck. You end on the High Wave King Caesar, and that High Wave King Caesar wins you the turn, because then you've got your graveyard effect of all your Fiendsmiths, they come back, right? That's how it was. Now with Fallen the Virtuous, that's not the case. It's still a very powerful card, but there are ways to out the High Wave King Caesar. I don't think anything happens to it. I'm actually quite happy enough it happens to it, because DDD need it more than anything. I don't think Fiendsmith are as big of an issue as they once were. There was the conversation that the Fiendsmith package should get hit and needs to get hit, but right now I honestly don't think it's that big of a threat. And it's kind of like I see with the Wanted and Seeker of Sinful Spoils and everything else, right? Back in the point where they were very abusable, they were in every single deck, they were a element that needed to be hit. They were on the tip of everyone's tongues. They were like, this needs to be hit, this needs to go. Now in a format where they're not prevalent, they don't need to be touched. Okay, that's my opinion. I don't think it does get banned. I agree with Mike on this one. It's a lot easier to out now. You've got Sparks, you've got Imperms, there's loads. We will get to, I think the biggest talking points of this upcoming list, and I'll put them at the end of the list, are these 4 cards here. All right, and I'll talk to them in a minute. Crystal Wing, I'm just going to put this up here because Crystal Wing is one of the cards right now in this current topic. After the legendary Arc 5 decks were released, a lot of people were like, whoa, there's no Crystal Wing. Crystal Wing's going to get banned because it's abusable in Elf Notes. I think it's cope. I honestly think it's cope. I do not think Crystal Wing gets hit. I don't want Crystal Wing to get hit. Crystal Wing only deals with monsters. It doesn't deal with everything. Crystal Wing's fine. I have no issue with Crystal Wing. It's pure cope for whoever think it is going to get hit, and go for that one. Card of Safe Return. Card of Safe Return. Let me just double check. This is where you draw if a card comes back from the grave, right? When a monster is special summoned from your graveyard, except during a damage step, draw a card. But it's not a hard once per turn. Do I think it could come back? There is, I almost guarantee you, right, there is a deck out there that will abuse the heck out of Card of Safe Return, right? I don't think it does. Kind of my same argument with Mirage of Nightmare, right? The modern game, the cards drawing and card advantage is way too much. Way too much. The cards you can draw, I think, would be so bad. Now, in a rogue deck, sure, you probably want to give them a bit of an advantage, but when you're considering the rogue decks and if the meta decks can abuse them, it completely outweighs the scales. It really could be bad. I mean, okay, rogue match, like a rogue deck like Mayakashi, Super Quantums, fine, they are rogue decks. This is what I'm saying. If you were to give that card and say you can only play it in these decks, sure, bring it back. That's something that I thought was quite unique about a Digimon Forbidden Limited list, is that Digimon did this ban where you couldn't use 2 cards in the same deck, but the cards weren't banned for everyone else. If you wanted to play those cards in your own deck of a different type, as long as you didn't play those 2 cards together, you were fine. I like that idea. But with Yu-Gi-Oh, it's very difficult to define what certain decks are. And what I mean by that is, if I was to play the best meta deck around, let's say I play Cool... I know this isn't logical because Cool Tunes don't work with it, da-da-da-da-da. But if I was to play Mayakashi Cool Tunes, right? Am I allowed to play Card of Safe Return? Is it a Mayakashi deck or is it a Cool Tune deck? If we were to bring in that rule of, this can only be used in a Mayakashi deck, this can only be used in a Super Quantal deck. Like, this is where I feel that something like that as a ban list limitation is just not possible for Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I feel that our card pool is so big, the creativity is so big. And again, don't get me wrong, I would love Card of Safe Return. I'd play it in Zombies, I'd play it in Light Swans, I'd play it in like loads of rogue decks. There is probably a strategy where it gets abused to beyond belief. So that's what I think Card of Safe Return is probably more logical to come back than Mirage of Nightmare. Never know. Don't get me wrong. If Konami just whip one of them out, sure. But I think that there are other cards on the ban list right now, on the ban section, that I feel could come back before those cards. Anyway, let's talk about the last ones. So, Albion, it can only be banned, right? There is no point in anything else. This kind of ties in with the Fallen and the Virtuous, because if you ban Albion, does Fallen and the Virtuous then become fine at 3, or does it still get abusable? I feel that Branded have a bit of a target on them in one way or another. I don't know what you would hit in Branded to make them fair and balanced. I think the deck's crazy good. I don't know what you hit. I feel that if you hit Fallen, you hit the generic C. Now, I've had this conversation with a lot of people already in regards to Fallen the Virtuous. Fallen the Virtuous is fine if it said, if you control no monsters. If Fallen the Virtuous was a more predominant go second card, the card's fine. The issue I have with Fallen the Virtuous, and I have benefited from it in the past as well, is that it is another line of target and dodge, which is minimal, but it's another card that you get to add to your Enfield. It makes go first Enfields stronger when they don't need to be stronger. That's my issue with it. If it was a card that said if you control no monsters, you can activate this card, fine. I think that balances the card out. The fact that it is can be used at any point, no matter what. The only difference is you have to have cards in your extra deck to do it, is kind of where I don't think it's that big of a trade-off. So, let's loop this back. Do I feel that they will ban Albion? No. Do I think they could ban Albion? Possibly. I don't think it changes that much, because then Albion just becomes the Dogma, right? Dragon that devours the Dogma. What does this one do? So I was trying to remember all the graveyard effects. During the evade, if cards in grave is at the center of their turn, you get to add a dogmatic or a tri-bag card. So it adds. So I don't mind that. I think the issue is that your Albion can set it. I think that's where most people will kind of figure it out. So, I mean, I'll talk about the Fallen Virtues at the same time. I don't think this will happen, but I wouldn't be completely shocked if this did happen. I think this is pointless. I think semi-limiting Fallen Virtuous is pointless, because all that does is it enhances the go first capabilities, which in my opinion is the issue. If you were to have an issue with the card, that is the issue with it. The issue with Fallen Virtuous, I don't think I've ever had an issue if my opponent goes second and they see Fallen Virtuous. I don't have an issue with that. I have an issue if my opponent goes first and they've set up Omni Negate, they've set 2, they've got another big boss monster, and then they also have a Fallen Virtuous. Right? That's where my issue comes into play. So semi-limiting it, or even limiting it, doesn't do a lot, in my opinion. I will be completely shocked if it gets banned. If it gets banned, I will be massively, massively shocked. I feel, to address my issue with the deck, if we were to add an issue to the deck, the most logical thing to happen would be to ban Albion. Because then, that doesn't let them use Fallen Virtuous, set it. It has to be added to the hand. That I feel is the compromise there. Because then not only does that mean, okay, cool, you've got a Fallen Virtuous for a crap back the next turn, it means you don't have a disruption during my turn, and then it means if I use my Fallen Virtuous against you as I'm going second, that's where it's, again, I don't get that added benefit of having it in my infield. So, I would feel bad that Albion gets banned. And also remember, this is something quite interesting, Albion is one of the only branded fusion monsters that does not have a Starlight Rare or a high rarity print yet. I'm pretty sure even Brigand doesn't, but like some of those don't. Graveyard Special Summon or Pop, that is pretty... the Special Summon is quite annoying as well. So, I feel that my issue, and everyone's going to have a different issue with Fallen Virtuous, right? That is fine. I feel the Fallen Virtuous is actually quite useful. My issue with Fallen Virtuous is when it adds to an already built field. That's my issue. So the problem is that Fallen of White generates too much impact. Just by sending for cost makes them have to play in 3 ways, makes it too unfair, and on Albion. So if I consider that one of the 3 Fallen of White. So again, I know that if my opponent activates the Fallen of White, they're going to get a Fallen Virtuous in the end phase, right? That's an issue to me. If they can't get it in the end phase, that's not that big of an issue. So do we not feel that, as painful as it is for Branded, if Albion gets banned, the effectiveness of Fallen Virtuous is still there. Going first, you can still use it to dodge. If you hard open it, you can still set it. But you can't get easy direct access to have it set during your end phase. And then you flip it to the go second. The go second, if you hard open it, great for you. You'll be able to try and break my field and pull my field apart, which is what it's really good at. But you won't be able to then add a Fallen Virtuous to the end field again. So that's kind of how I would see it. I feel that banning Albion would be the fairest balance on it. That would balance Fallen of the Virtuous to me, in my opinion. Again, everyone's going to have their own opinion on it. Everyone's going to want to do it a different way. That's just kind of, we'll leave that one there. Wanted and Witch. I don't think they get hit at all. I don't think they do. I think a lot of people do have that conversations of either you semi-limit both of them or you limit one of them, right? That's what a lot of people would consider. I don't think it's as abusable as as it's considered to be. I don't think it's as bad as it used to be. I don't think it gets touched at all. So that's what I'm kind of going for then. The last 3 cards: Super Polarization, Draw Unlock Bird, and True Tactic Talents. Okay. So at the moment, Super Poly is at 3, Draw Unlock Bird is at 2, Talents is at 1. Talents can only be banned, right? I feel Talents needs to get banned. I mean, we knew Talents was a busted card when it had Change of Heart, Pot of Greed, and Forceful Sentry in one card. Like, everyone knew it was a bad, like, that card, it was walking the tightrope of being banned, right? I would not be shocked if Dual Tactic Talents get banned. I wouldn't be fussed if it did get banned either. Like, look at Noroi that gives you hand advantage. Look at Aquadolphin that gives you hand knowledge, but you have to discard a card for it. Look at Rotary that gives you hand knowledge. And it's like, here, have Dual Tactic Talents that gives you hand knowledge and takes a card away from it. I feel Dual Tactic Talents, I would not be shocked if it gets banned. If it doesn't get banned, I'll be more shocked if it doesn't get banned than if it does get banned, if that makes sense. Super Poly, a lot of people are talking about Super Poly, that it needs to be semi-limited or limited. If anything was to happen to it, I think it becomes semi-limited. I personally don't want it to be. Yes, Super Poly is an incredibly busted card. But I think it's good for the game. It's a little bit like, if we're going to use the Fallen of the Virtuous argument, it's a little bit like Fallen of the Virtuous, but the difference is you have to hard open up Super Polarization. It costs you a discard. Yes, it's non-respondable. It's probably its biggest issue. But I also think it's its biggest benefit as well. I think Super Polarization, as painful as it is to get hit with it, is actually just a fine card. I don't have that big of an issue with it. So I don't think Super Poly gets hit, but I wouldn't be shocked if it got semi-limited. I personally don't think it does. Droll, again, Droll would become the next dimension shifter if you put it to 1. That's basically what it would be. So you're either going to limit it or you're going to ban it, right? There's no way it comes back to 3. Like, we already know that Droll's issue is it's a lingering effect. Like, it locks the entire turn. I think Droll is a necessary evil. I really do. I think that Droll is a necessary evil. I think it stays as semi-limited. I don't think anything happens on it. We've just been given 2 copies in the Legendary Arc 5 decks. I would be shocked if they get hit. Yes, this takes it back to the conversation we were having earlier about, well, you can't justify cards not getting hit and getting hit because they are or aren't in a product. But the difference is with the Legendary Modern decks, they've been out for nearly 5 months. There's a bit more logical to do with that. And if you were to hit semi-limit the prayers, that's what you get in the deck anyway. So I think Droll stays where it is. I don't think Droll changes at all. Make of that what you will. I think it does need to change. I don't think Droll is a healthy card for the game, but I feel quite like Super Polarization, it's a necessary evil, but I feel Super Poly is more... I wouldn't count Super Poly as a necessary evil. I just think Super Poly is a good card. The fact you can't respond to it is quite powerful, but then it also gives you that added benefit. And I feel that a lot of good players will play around Super Polarization if they expect it to be there. And I don't think Super Polarization is as hard to deal with as Draw and Lockbird. Like, Draw and Lockbird, you have to see cross out or call by it, and you need to be playing them anyway. So I don't think any of these, the rest of these change at all. That, again, just in my opinion, I don't think that happens. Who you talk? So skip cards that her has no idea about. What's the point of putting it on the ban list? Timeout. So what card are you talking about? I like the draw for Saucy. If your deck dies to draw, it's because it's toxic enough deck. If Super Poly is Nexus, then unban Baron and Savage. If Super Poly is necessary, unban Baron and Savage. I never said, like, Super Poly... Super Poly is considered a necessary evil. I don't think it is necessary. I think it's really good for going second, and I think specific decks can play it going second. I don't think it's as splashable. I have no issue with Savage coming back. I have no issue with Baron coming back. I think the mistake with Baron was the fact that it could tag out during the standby phase, and then there's ways to get it back into rotation. Savage Dragon, again, I don't have an issue with it. I think Savage Dragon can come back because Savage Dragon forces you to play a Link-style deck, and Savage Dragon is only that one Omni-Negate. I don't have an issue with Savage Dragon. I think Savage Dragon is fine. I don't even have that big of an issue with Baron. The issue with them was when they became splashable. They were cards in that format. So Sword Soul abused Baron, right? Rockets abused the Rockets and Dark Link and all of that abused Savage Dragon. One of them in a deck is fine, but like very, very simply, Baron should have said a Fleur Tuner, and Savage Dragon should have said a Rocket Monster or a Rocket Tuner, or like that. That would have been fine. So like that's kind of the problem with Super Poly is that it exists in a fusion heavy meta. So all right, again, so Super Poly is considered a problem because of the format we're in. So that's the same argument with Fiendsmith. They were an issue because of the format we're in. You say we're in a heavy fusion style format, but we're not really. When you look at Cool Tunes 1 Euros, Cool Tunes 1 in OCG, but whether you want to compare OCG or not is completely up to you. You also then look at Sky Strikers 1 American NAWCQ, and the top decks are all Cool Tunes. So that's not a fusion heavy format. And then Ritual Light and Darkness isn't a fusion heavy deck. It can become more so depending on the type of bridge you make. So, and I'm trying to remember what one Oceanic. I think the Oceanic was a Mitsurugi 60 card pile with Ritual Light and Darkness. So it's, you know, there's not I think Super Poly is a good card for going second. A lot of duelists say we need more help with cards for going second, and I actually agree. I think going first, it's very, very difficult. Like it's going second, it's very, very difficult to completely break fields. That's why we end up playing like a lot of hand interactions and everything else in between. Again, everyone's going to have different opinions on everything. I don't think Super Poly is that bad. If you wanted to semi-limit Super Poly, sure, fine, whatever. I don't think that makes that big of a difference in the game. Yes, it makes it one card harder to get access to. Okay, so I think the issue with Super Poly is that it's a quick play. Imagine it being a normal spell, then it'll work more as it goes second card, kind of like Dark World No More. Yeah, I think, which is fine. And again, so the issue with Super Poly is that it could be set turn 1, and then it makes that turn 1 field better. But that turn 1 field can still be broken. You can still play around super polymerization if you're a good kind of like competitive duelist. I don't think there are times where Super Poly ends the game, like ends that turn as you're trying to build. Like usually good players will try and find ways to go to cards that will try and bait out spells and traps. Just one set Super Poly is not a game ender. It's set Super Poly with a set Fallen the Virtuous plus a whatever else you want to add to that field. Like build that field as you see fit. We're getting crazy cards going second later. I mean, we do, yes. Okay, so we have Fua. Not every deck is affected by Fua. Fua is a big deterrent, which is fine. But it's not, again, going second, you have to see the Fua. If you don't see the Fua in that top deck draw, again, Fua is not winning games on its own. It limits the field that a person puts together, and then it's down to that duelist whether they push into that Fua, whether they set up the most effective field. And again, if you're a good duelist, you know the limitations under Fua. So you can't, like, a lot of high-end competitive duelists are fully aware that going second is a lot harder than going first. Unless you are building your deck to be a breaker deck, which is fine. There is a reason that decks like Trains are not dominating the meta. The best decks are decks that can go first and go second. But going first is still a lot more effective than going second. Like, how many times when you win the dice roll are you choosing to go second? How many times are, after siding, when you get to choose who goes first or second, are you choosing to go first? More times than not, you are going first. So going first is always the better way of doing it. So, Super Poly isn't too much of a deal, but the card is crazy. There is no doubt in my mind. I agree. Super Polarization is a crazy good card. The issue with Super Polarization is that it says your opponent cannot respond. That is what makes Super Polarization crazy, because you flip Super Polarization, you discard a card, your opponent sits there, goes, right, well, there's nothing I can do. But it's not a game ender. It's not a press. It's not like, cool, here's Spell Canceller, and you're like, well, I have to see Imperm, otherwise I lose. Like, you have so many more options. So many more. So, yeah, it shouldn't be. So you're saying the top decks are mostly dark. So what are we worried about? We're worried that Super Polarization, right? So for Super Polarization to be an abusable deck or abusable card, you need to play what, 3 cards? I'll tell you what, actually, this will be quite interesting. So let's go to Yu-Gi-Oh decks, right? So we're saying that the top decks. Let me find Oceanic WCQ. Let's go North American WCQ. Let's go Japan Championship. I mean, Japan Championship doesn't make much of a difference, but let me try and find the EU WCQ as well. EU WCQ. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, Yugioh, Dex, EU WCQ. There we go. Right. So let's have a look. Let's just Oceanic North America. Top decks. Just put this up on the screen for everyone to see. All right. So top decks and a North American WCQ was 1 Sky Striker, and then 7 Cool Tunes. Okay. So the Sky Striker wasn't playing Super Polarization. Can't play Super Polarization, all right? So this is a bit of an oblia. Cool Tune, not playing Super Polarization. Cool Tune, not playing Super Polarization. Cool Tune, not playing Super Polarization. Cool Tune, no Super Polarization. Cool Tune, no Super Polarization. No Super Poly. Oh, well, actually, I'll take that back. There you go. Super Poly. So 1 person in the top 8 was playing Super Poly. Was there 2? 1 person. Ritual Light and Dynast, no Super Polarization. No Super Polarization. Super Polarization there. And Tom Prain's branded. No Super Polarization there. So that's, what, 2? Is that 2 Super Polarization decks? 3 Mitsurugi. No, none there. Doomsday. No Super Poly and Doomsday. Bit surprising there. None there. None there. None there. Top 32, none there. None there. None there. 1 there, so that's 4. Nothing on that deck list. None there. None there. No. 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 1 there, so that's 5. So of the top 32, 5 players had Super Polarization. 5 players played Super Polarization, okay? So that's America. Let's have a look at Europe. So have a look at Europe. So North American WCQ, let's get rid of that. Europe. Now, Europe, a bit more wide range here. Cool Tune, Mitsu, Branded, Invoke, Elf Note, and Archmage, all right? Cool Tune, none in there. Mitsu, Super Polarization. Branded, Super Polarization. Branded, Super Polarization. Invoked, Super Polarization. Cool Tune, Note. None on Cool Tune there. None on Elf Note there. Light and Darkness, none there. So we had 5 in America, right? So 5 in the top 32 was on Super Poly. There's 1 there, so that's 5 now. None there. None there. None there. No. So 6. 6. 7. 8. 9. 9. There you go. So 9 people in the EU of the top decks play Super Polarization. And then finally, Oceanic. So again, Light and Darkness Ritual, Archmage, Branded, Cool Tune, da 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 da. Okay, so no Super Poly there. None there. 1 there. No deck list there. Another one there. 2. 3. 4. None there. 4. 5. 6. None there. None there. And then I don't think any of those have deck lists. So of the top 32, so that's the top 64. Of the top 32 in Oceanic, 7 played Super Polarization that we can see. So of 96 decks, again trying to do the maths on top of my head, there was 21 Super Polarizations in the decks. Is Super Poly that big of an issue? I don't think it is, if we're using that, okay? So Tom will welcome in the debate club. Just because it isn't consistent in the top cut deck doesn't mean it's not a problem. KT plays around it. So, okay. Why? So, Super Poly can be played around. This is what I'm just trying to explain, is that it's not an auto-win card. Are we trying to say that Super Poly is worse than Spell Canceller, Anti-Spell Fragrance, Trill Tactics, Talons, and Albion, and the Albion is only off of the back of the Fallen and Virtuous? I don't think it is. I honestly don't think it is. So nowadays we make an end board that isn't valuable to it in almost any deck. It's okay for now. 2 is fine. It's currently at 3. At 2, I don't think it makes that big of a difference. Brand shouldn't be able to play Super Poly since the opponent can chain to it to dodge targets, remove your bodies, and get to Dogma. Okay, so again, you're using Branded as the example. So is Branded going to be more effective if they lose Albion? Is Branded going to be more effective if Fallen and Virtuous get hit? So if it's a card, it has to pay for Branded's crimes. I don't think it does. I think that they can hit more direct options for Branded. Again, everyone's going to have their opinions. I'm just going off of the points that are being raised here, right? The points that are being raised is that all the top decks had darks. But yet again, we didn't see it in the top decks. It's not that effective. Like, duelists are deliberately choosing, duelists that are making their way to Worlds and representing their countries, ultimately decided that the Super Poly was not worth it. Yes, you will see Super Polarization in Mitsurugi. Yes, you will see Super Polarization in some of the other decks that I saw. Some were playing it in Cool Tune, some weren't. Some were playing it in Light and Darkness decks, some weren't. Some Branded, you will see it, and Invoked, you will see it. But, like, Super Poly is not winning those games. Those duelists are doing it themselves, and it's probably the rest of the deck. Like, I reckon that their easier access to cards like Fallen the Virtuous is probably going to be a bit more annoying than a lot for people to deal with. So, yeah, what was Norden? Norden is 1 XYZ and 1 Fusion, right? So Norden isn't that much of a, not that big of a Super Polymerization target, right? But yes, it would be really good. 1 Synchro or XZs plus a Synchro and XZs. So in certain matchups, it would be very, very good. That is very true. But again, think about the Super Polarization. I'm curious actually what the Super Polarization targets were in the generic decks that we play in it. Let me find the Mitsurugi. What were the targets? So the targets were Theseus, Mud Dragon, and Garura. So you're already taking up 3 slots in your extra deck in order to do that. So it's a bit of a trade-off. I agree when you apply it to Branded. When you apply it to Branded and they have all of these options, and Invoked when they have all of those options as well, it does start to get a little bit more tilted to one way rather than the other. But the point is, I don't think again, in opinion, I don't think Super Polarization is that bad. If you were to push for it, I don't think it gets banned. Okay, if you were to push for it to have an effect, I reckon it gets semi-limited first, and then it probably gets banned. If it becomes that big of an issue. But I don't think it's that... If anything, semi-limited, I don't think it gets hit at all. Again, opinion, I don't think it gets hit. I don't think it gets hit. But if I see a list and it's semi-limited, sure. By all means, if a list comes out and Super Poly is banned, you are free to be like, told you so, told you so. That's fine. I don't mind you doing that, all right? Again, my opinion, I don't think it gets banned. It could get semi-limited. I don't think it will. But, you know, I've seen crazier things before on Forbidden Limited list. Anyway, this has been nearly a full hour. By the time I wrap this up, it will be a full hour of a discussion. Now, this is actually a really good topic. I like this. I like this good back and forth. We had a good back and forth about Mirage and Nightmare. We had a good back and forth against Fallen the Virtuous, Super Polarization. This is what I like about stuff like this. Is it's good conversation back and forth. Now, I'm not saying that no one is allowed their opinions, and by all means, bring opinions to it. Bring facts to the matter. That's fine. If you were to say to me, for example, 15 duelists won the duel because of Super Polarization, I'd be like, all right, fair enough. Like, I think this is quite fun. I'm just saying, you know, yes, Super Poly is a good card, but is it a good card because of the format we're in? If the format changes again because Beyond the Brave or whatever, does it then become less effective? Is it fairer if everyone's on the card or only a few people can play the card? Like, is it fairer that Dominus Impulse... Like, is it Dominus Impulse that bad, even though the deck selection is a little bit... Like, does not Fallen the Virtues, Dominus Impulse only become an issue if the main meta decks are Impulses and everyone's on Impulse? Like, how does that juggle up? Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Again, like I'm saying, none of this is in bad taste, however you want to do it. It's actually been a very, very good, fun, back and forth conversation. I've actually had a lot of fun with this. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe. And, of course, happy dueling.